We're closing out 2018 with a look ahead at some of the issues they're expected to take up soon after Inauguration Day. On our Journalist Roundtable, Hank Stevenson, editor of the Yellow Sheet Report, Jim Ninsel, executive editor of the Tucson Weekly and Tucson Local Media, and Dan Shear, editor of the Green Valley News and Sahuarita Sun. Our conversation picks up on the topic of our next legislative session.
The legislative session here at the state level, I think water is going to be a big issue. We've got the drought contingency plan that CAP has agreed to. That's got to get through the legislature. Ducey's putting that very high up on his agenda. He's already promised $30 million towards water issues. That could be a fight. There are so many interests involved in water legislation that it could really go sideways. It seems like the governor and his team are doing everything to make sure that whatever we come to the table with in January is kind of what moves out of the legislature at the end of the day.
How likely are we to see that, Dan?
We have to see it, and we have to see it by the end of January. So if there's going to be a back and forth, it better be real quick, which this legislature is not real good at. But if you want the feds to step in and make all the decisions, then don't make a decision. So the back is up against the wall on this one. We have to make a decision. More important than that, though, is to look beyond the drought contingency plan and to look, give an honest assessment of conservation efforts in Arizona. We really need to do that going forward because we are going to have a trigger that means that we're going to have to cut back on water. That's just the way it is. But what are we going to do going forward to change our lifestyles to use less water in this state? So it goes, once we get the drought contingency plan in place, the game isn't over. It's really just beginning. We must focus on conservation.
Jim, we hear this every year, though. Is water going to be taken more seriously this year as opposed to others?
Well, it's being talked about at all layers of government as I'm talking to people. So it's certainly a topic of conversation because the situation is becoming more and more dire at Lake Mead. Certainly on water, which is one of the most contentious issues out there. The governor went in last year with his own plan and kind of tried to railroad the legislature, and they fought back against it. And the question is, how serious are they going to be there, and are they actually going to restrict the developers from sticking a straw in the aquifer anywhere they want? And that's a big question to be asked.
How likely are we to see some green, given that we have a little bit more of a diverse legislative session this year? I mean, we have more Democrats and newcomers to politics. Yeah,
so in the State House, there are 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats. So every Republican is the 31st key vote. So if you're going to lose a Republican on any legislation, you've got to replace them with a Democrat. And I think that, oftentimes the more conservative Republicans are the ones voting against Republican bills that move forward. So you may really see a shift away from passing policy that gets the entire Republican caucus on board towards passing policy that gets the vast majority of the Republican caucus on board, and maybe a couple of more moderate Democrats as well, who could be big players in the up-and-coming legislative session.
I think one other thing to keep your eye on up there is there's number one, this vehicle license fee, which was twice what people lawmakers were expecting when they passed it. It went from, they were thinking 16 to end up being instituted at $32. So there's a lot of blowback in the legislature about that, but I think Doug Ducey likes the idea of the money that's going to be coming in from that, and he said he'd veto any efforts to roll back that fee. Also, there's a weird, I don't want to get into the weeds here, there's a weird situation with the federal taxes and the state tax code and the federal tax cut, and it looks like the state's going to have a lot more money rolling in this session unless they do, or this year, unless they do some kind of special session. So I think you're going to see a lot of special interest groups going in and trying to get a piece of that money, that additional dollars that are coming in. I think there's going to be conservative Republicans who are going to push to basically get the tax in line with the federal taxes in order to not prevent that from coming in. But again, I think Doug Ducey likes the idea of having some extra money, being able to play Santa Claus and dish it out.
Dan, these guys have both alluded to conservative Republican, and then is it just a regular Republican, I'm assuming, that you guys are referring to? How likely are we to see that play out, given that we have, we still have a Republican governor?
Right, and I can say that down in our area, our Democratic leaders are buoyed by the small edge that the Republicans have in the House now. They really feel like they can get something done. They've got their eye on this surplus money. Everyone's going to be putting their pet projects forward and looking at how the governor might be spending that. But I think for the first time in a long time, the Democrats feel like maybe they can have some of their issues at least heard and get the ball rolling on it.
Criminal justice reform is also one to watch up there. This has been bubbling around in the background for a long time. It looked like there was going to be an entire committee dedicated to it until the potential chair of that committee started talking about how minorities don't properly blend in America, and sort of got stripped of that committee chairmanship, and the committee evaporated. But nonetheless, Rusty Bowers, who's the Speaker of the House, seems to have some commitment to at least taking a look at this legislation. Whether it goes anywhere remains to be seen, but that is a huge cost driver as well at the local and state level in terms of how much money we're spending on incarcerating people, and doesn't make sense with our current penal code. And I think there's a lot of push at the state level, the federal level, the local level to see about resolving some of the mandatory sentencing.
And it's very important to look at this not as a Democratic issue, and I think for years it has been. Criminal justice system reform has been something that people want to do for the down and out, and it really is a money issue. Number one, it costs us a lot of money to incarcerate people, and are these people who really should be in jail? And that's what we're really talking about, is jail versus prison on a lot of this. We should be in the business also of helping people improve their lives, and that's important too. But if you want to look at just as a money issue, it's a huge one, and this one does deserve a look, and it deserves to not be treated as a partisan issue.
Our conversation then turned to education and expectations put on incoming State Superintendent Kathy Hoffman. Now we have a teacher serving as superintendent of public instruction. How likely is that to drive the direction that the legislators have wanted for so long?
Well, the superintendent of public instruction is an interesting job. As we saw with Diane Douglas, at the end of the day, they don't have a whole lot of power. Their biggest kind of political tool is the bully pulpit, the ability to rally people to set some sort of an agenda that the legislature can frankly ignore. It's a Democrat in that office, which we haven't seen in a long time, which adds some interesting dynamics to the politics. She's been playing very kind of down the middle since she's been elected. But that office largely is an administrative job. You run the Department of Education. So other than Kathy Hoffman's ability to kind of bring a crowd and bring ideas and bring people together, she doesn't pass bills. So it'll be interesting to see, one, kind of how she does this job, how effective she is at it. Diane Douglas went in there and basically started swinging at everyone within sight, including the governor, within her first few weeks on the job, and damaged her political credibility for her entire 4-year term. I think Kathy Hoffman will be very careful not to do that.
And I think Kathy Hoffman needs to focus on two things. Number one is that we still are losing lots and lots of teachers. We're educating them and they're leaving because they can make more money elsewhere. And number two is we're having kids graduate from high school who are not prepared for even entry-level positions, and therefore that's going to affect companies coming to our state. So again, you hit education just like criminal justice system reform, you hit it on this economic level, and more people are going to listen. So she doesn't pass bills, but she has the ear of those who do. Hank, if I could ask you to speculate for a little bit, do you think that a lot of the Republican legislators believe that they've done enough for education, given what has happened in the past year?
Yeah. So, look, you see a lot of Republican legislators talking about the 2020 plan still. We are going to finish off the 2020 plan, and that is not all that Red for Ed was asking for. That was probably the centerpiece of what teachers wanted when they went on strike, is, a 20% raise. They thought that was reasonable, bring us up to essentially the median for nationwide teacher pay. But they also wanted just funding restored to 2008 levels. They wanted capital funding. They wanted a lot of other things to go along with it. And I don't think I've heard a single Republican lawmaker talking about going in and this year using our surplus to bring education funding overall back to 2008 levels. There's a lot of them talking about paying down debt. There's a lot of them talking about maybe ending rollovers that had started years ago in the education system. So more money for education, but not necessarily these big things that Red for Ed wanted. And I think that, generally speaking, they're looking towards more things like paying down debt, buying back the Capitol buildings. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that this year.
So if teachers continue to leave and we're not churning out the students that we expect, what impact did Red for Ed actually have?
Well, it did get the teachers a raise. But I think what happened was it started to build a lot of political momentum for Democrats, and it was effective in terms of winning a few more legislative seats. I think that made the difference in some of these legislative seats, or was one of the things that made a difference. And it certainly, you saw how powerful an issue it was when you saw Doug Ducey go from saying we can't afford more than 1% to we'll get you to 20%. I mean, it's clearly a powerful political issue, and I think it's going to continue to be. Whether Republican lawmakers have heard the message or not, and they heard it enough to get to the 2020 plan, I think people are still going to be expecting more because education is a crucially important top issue to many, many voters out there.
All right, we'll end there on state news. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll talk about what's about to happen with Arizona in the federal scope.